How to think like Thomas Shelby. Now, it's time for me to revisit one of my most favourite TV show characters of all time, who is none other than Mr. Tommy fucking Shelby. Now, if you already haven't watched the previous Tommy Shelby breakdown, then I highly suggest you go watch it, as there is a massive wealth of knowledge that you can learn from that video alone, as I cover a lot about the power dynamics and the tactics that he uses to become one of the most powerful gangsters in the entire show. So make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. But in this video, what I'm going to be covering is more of the psychological mindset of Tommy, of how he uses certain strategies to become such a powerful leader. And I'm going to be diving deep into the two main strategies that you can use in order for you to learn how to think more like Thomas Shelby. And to do this, I'll be using Robert Greene's works as reference of power and human nature so that you can implement into your life, in your businesses, and in yourself. So make sure you stick around to the end of this video, because after you're done watching, I can assure you, you'll find it no problem to be a part of the Peaky fucking blinders. Now, the first law that we're going to start with to help us learn more about how to think like Thomas comes down to the law of short-sightedness. It is in the animal part of your nature to be most impressed by what you can see and hear in the present. Things such as the latest news reports and trends, the opinions and actions of the people around you, and whatever seems to be the most dramatic. This is what makes you fall for alluring schemes that promise quick results and easy money. This is also what makes you overreact to present circumstances, becoming overly exhilarated or panicky as events turn one direction or the other. But by learning to measure people by the narrowness or breadth of their vision, however, you avoid entangling yourself with those people who cannot see the consequences of their actions and who are in continual reactive mode. They will infect you with this energy. Your eyes must be on the larger trends that govern events, on that which is not immediately visible. Never lose sight of your long-term goals. With an elevated perspective, you will have the patience and clarity to reach almost any objective. And this is the first law that we're going to discuss, which describes Tommy's ways of thinking perfectly. Now, out of the whole Peaky Blinders gang, it is without a doubt that Tommy is the leader. This is not because he is physically the strongest or anything like that. It's simply because he has the very strong ability to zoom his perspective out of the current moment and see the bigger picture. The bigger picture that can dictate how to create a plan of action to achieve his goals. An example of this is back in the first season, between the scene of Tommy and Billy Kimber, who throws a coin on the floor and instructs Tommy to pick it up. This is a simple power move that Kimber initiates on Tommy to see who is in control of the situation. Now, as we can see in the scene, John doesn't agree with it at all and understands that it is disrespect on Tommy to pick it up. But nevertheless, Tommy gets on the floor and picks it up, confirming to Kimber that he is the one that holds the power. Now, on the surface, it does seem that Kimber is the one that holds the power, but in actual fact, all that Tommy did will sacrifice a pawn in his ongoing chess match against Mr. Kimber. Because of him being able to elevate his perspective on things, this is what gives him the patience to deal with the disrespect and see it as something small in comparison to the grand scheme of things, as he knew that he had to play that role in order to get close to Billy, which was the whole goal in the first place. This was the difference between Tommy and Mr. Kimber, and by the end of season 1, we all know who came out on top at the end. This is just one of the many examples throughout the show that Tommy exerts this strong ability of being able to control his short-term reactions in exchange for the long-term consequence, where provocation doesn't really affect his elevated perspective on things. The lesson that we can learn from here is that even though it is in our human nature to be highly tuned to the present, what you need to learn is to filter out the noise and understand the potential long-term consequences from our short-term actions. Now, this doesn't mean to go completely against the present and to ignore the need to improvise at times, but what it means is that you need to think very carefully about the consequences of your actions and distance yourself from people who don't. Us human beings are naturally short-sighted. We rarely think more than a year ahead, and this is what leads us to being frustrated when we don't see results instantaneously. But by exerting patience and elevating your perspective, by strategically thinking long term, is what will allow you to keep focus on your long-term goals, which in reality are the ones that matter the most. Don't get too caught up in the day-to-day problems. It's more than likely that just in a year's time, they will disappear. Don't react in the moment. Take time out to put things in perspective. As much as people want to say life is short, it also is pretty long as well. And you have enough time to achieve your goals, as long as you use the time wisely. This is what frustrates Tommy when it comes to season 5, where Abraham Gold completely disregards Tommy's orders to not go looking for revenge on the Billy Boys for his son's death. Which leads me to the next point. Just because you understand long-term strategy and the consequences of actions, that doesn't mean that everyone else around you does. Which is not surprising, as again, we established that this goes against people's natural instincts. How are we able to keep people in line? How are we able to ensure that the people around us do not deviate from the plans and strategies that we lay out? Well, this comes down to the second strategy which we can see used by Thomas Shelby, which happens to be the 13th law of power. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. If you need to turn to an ally for help, do not bother to remind him of your past assistance and good deeds. He will find a way to ignore you. Instead, uncover something in your request or in your alliance with him that will benefit him, and emphasize it all out of proportion. By doing this, he will respond enthusiastically when he sees something to be gained for himself. And this is exactly the strategy that Tommy uses to keep the people around him in line. Now, like I said in the previous breakdown, Tommy has a fierce reputation, and that rep helps him to steer people towards what he wants them to do. And with majority of people, it works. But this reputation only works so far with certain people, especially from the people around you. This is where the 13th law of power comes into play. Like I said previously, Tommy more or less knows what he's doing. He likes for it to seem that all the decisions are to be made fairly and agreed by everyone. But in reality, he's already made up his mind of what he's going to do. He just needs to persuade everyone to just agree with it. An example of this is in season 5, where Tommy is trying to persuade Arthur and Polly to doing an opium deal with the Chinese. Now from the get-go, Polly and Arthur vote against it, making the vote 2 against 1. But as Tommy goes on to explain the proposition, he dangles the thought of Michael being reinstated into the company, which changes Polly's perspective entirely, as at the time, Tommy had put Michael on a quarantine from the gang, putting his loyalty in question. Michael is Polly's son, and because Tommy appealed to Polly's self-interest, as she didn't like to see her son in the position that he's in, she quickly changes her opinion, as it's something that will benefit her, switching from voting against with Arthur to voting for with Tommy. This simple basic strategy of appealing to someone's self-interest is what can be used to help you get others to help you. Another example is between Tommy and Aberama Gold in season 5, where Aberama insists that he wants to take revenge against the head of the Billy Boys, Jimmy McCavan, for the death of his son. But if this was to happen, it would cause Tommy's plans to undermine Oswald Mosley to crash and burn. But how can you deny a broken man revenge for the murder of his son? Well, once again, Tommy uses the strategy of appealing to Aberama's self-interest by offering Polly's hand in marriage, who he knows Aberama loves, in exchange for peace. The result? Aberama agrees and takes a back seat and promises to keep his hands off Jimmy McCavan until the plan is fully executed. Are you starting to see how this works now? In life and business, it is almost certain that you are going to have to ask for help and assistance from people. This action in itself doesn't make you a weak person. Everyone needs help from time to time, but it's the way you go about it that determines whether you come off as a weak person or not. No matter how honourable some people may portray themselves to be, ultimately, when you ask them for help, the only thing that they are concerned with is what is in it for them. What can you offer in exchange that will appeal to their self-interest? Appealing to their mercy or for what you've done for them in the past will only stir up weakness and envy for you. This is what Tommy is a master at, and this is how he's able to command such obedience from his peers. Think of it as an ethical bribe. You want to be perceptive enough to understand the mind of the person you are talking to, understanding who they are, how they think, and values, etc., etc. By observing and identifying people's wants and needs and appealing to them when needed, allows you to put yourself in a much more advantageous position to influence them and guide them to where you want them to go. And that's how to think like Thomas Shelby. By using the law of short-sightedness and the law of appealing to other people's self-interest is what is going to allow you to think more like Thomas Shelby and allow you to exert way more power and strength in your life and in the world of business. So if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment below on what your thoughts and feelings are about Thomas Shelby, and leave a few suggestions on who I should break down next. And if you are new to the channel, welcome to the channel, and to all our loyal subscribers, we are glad you are here. We do some of the best character breakdowns on the whole of YouTube, and we aim to produce at least one high quality animated video per week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any golden knowledge. I'll see you soon.